Thank you, Gleaves. Great to be with you today on this eve of Abraham Lincoln's bicentennial celebration. And it's a delight to be here with Dr. Anderson, who has served this state so nobly, and most recently, of course, as the director of the Department of History, Arts, and Libraries. I certainly want to thank the Hauenstein Center for Presidential Studies for the invitation to be with you today to talk about everybody's favorite president, Abraham Lincoln. And let me just lead with a couple questions, kind of framing what I want you to think about as we move through this, this tribute to Abraham Lincoln. What would we make of Abraham Lincoln if he emerged on the scene today? Would we give the time of day to a politician who characterized the crisis in America as the eternal struggle between right and wrong? Would we fully appreciate a national leader who said, "My policy is to have no policy"? We might question his depth and comprehension of the issues of the day, but these were the words spoken by Abraham Lincoln, and I want you to think in the context of his day whether those words were appropriate. I'm going to just share some personal thoughts, and if you have questions, I understand this is kind of a freestyle. You can stop me, ask those questions. I don't mind being interrupted. I want to share a personal connection, if you will, with President Lincoln, and then close with my own tribute to our 16th president. It is important that we celebrate this bicentennial commemoration. It is important to study the life of Lincoln. And why is that? A study of Lincoln has everything to do with character and values. And hard for us to imagine today the level of ridicule, criticism, and even unkind remarks said about Lincoln in his day, even about his appearance. And now, in this modern age, this 21st century, his image is the very icon of the ages. His legacy is chiseled, as we know, in massive stone on Mount Rushmore. His martyrdom remains etched in the heart of every lover of liberty around the world. For me, as a lawmaker, maybe more importantly as a citizen, Lincoln is always the best example. Certainly the safest example. And what do I mean by that? I mean, Lincoln doesn't mislead us if we choose to follow his example. Other presidents have been great, even inspirational, but some take us down the wrong path, the path of even personal destruction and wrong living. We wouldn't want to be like them. Lincoln doesn't disappoint us. When I was young and dreamed about being involved in politics, I studied Lincoln. And I always felt uplifted and ennobled. And in a way, we can all identify with Abraham Lincoln because we see in him the life struggles so common to all humanity. We see hope and determination, failure, sadness, a profound yearning for self-improvement. We find accomplishment through hard work, kindness, goodness, and there's a difference. We find compassion, a growing trust in God, and an abiding hope in the promise of America. In Lincoln, we see a reflection of America, and it is good. We need to teach our children the example of Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln, true to his calling to save the Union, is a unifier even today. He crosses party lines. Both parties invoke his name. As he did in life, so his legacy does today. He brings out the best in us. I'd like to share a small personal connection with Abraham Lincoln, if you will allow me a personal story. And I discovered this association many years ago. I was asked, I think I was a city commissioner at the time, I was asked by the local Grange Club to come and talk about Abraham Lincoln. And I thought to myself, is there anything new that could be said about Lincoln? Certainly not. We know it all. I was reminded, maybe by a small voice inside, that suggested that I go back and read Jim Bishop's book, The Day Lincoln Was Shot. And I had this conversation with myself, and I said, no, I don't think so. I've already read that book. I know what's in there. There's nothing new in there. And again, I was prompted to read Jim Bishop's book, The Day Lincoln Was Shot. Now, mind you, this is not a book that historians today would necessarily suggest that you read if you're going to study the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. They might recommend Ed Steer's book, Blood on the Moon, or Michael Kaufman's The American Brutus, two outstanding, more recent books that have really contributed a lot to the research of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. But at that time, this may have been 20, 30 some years ago, Jim Bishop's book was still probably regarded as a good work. We do know that there are some inaccuracies in that book now. But true to the prompt, I took the book off the shelf, my own shelf. I started reading it. And as I read it, I thought to myself, there really isn't anything here. I must have been having some strange imagination, until I turned one page and came across a statement about the substitute ticket collector at Ford's Theater the night Lincoln was shot. And I think Blood on the Moon kind of starts in the first chapter with a quote by the substitute ticket collector at Ford's Theater that night. His name was Joseph Sessford. Now that's an unusual name, S-E-S-S-F-O-R-D. I happen to know something about that name because it's my middle name. And Joseph Sessford Brown was my father. And so here is a gentleman at Ford's Theater, a witness to the most horrific event of the millennium, one of them certainly, and he has this same name as my father. And I thought, you know, it's an unusual name. It's a small family to begin with. It's a Scottish name. I knew that my father was from Kansas, my mother was from Michigan, but I had some knowledge that my great-great-great-grandfather, a man named John Sessford, settled in Washington. In fact, when he died, the obituary referred to him as the father of the city, the chronicler of Washington, D.C. And in fact, in the National Intelligencer, in that newspaper, I found the obit in the microfiche, it may have been at that time, at Western Michigan University. And up above my great-great-grandfather's obituary is the obituary for Willie Lincoln. So here they died just within days. But it's the son of my great-great-great-grandfather who was the substitute ticket collector at Ford's Theater, my great-great-great-uncle. And I didn't know this, my father didn't know this, so I mean, I'm giving you a capsule summary of some extensive research I had to do to just ascertain the connection there. But again, the name is so unusual, there's so few of us, that I was certain even at first reading that he had to be connected with my family.